The underdogs of interstellar commerce. Eliza Reeves pulled her worn leather jacket tighter as she stepped onto the observation deck of her small cargo ship, the Persistence. At 42, she had the weathered look of someone who had spent most of her life in the unforgiving vacuum of space. The viewport offered a stunning view of Earth growing smaller behind them as they accelerated toward the newly established jump point near Jupiter's orbit. "Captain," called Vance, her navigator and oldest friend, "we've got clearance for the jump, but I'm picking up something strange on the scanners." Eliza frowned. This route was supposed to be empty. A new Pather company, Reeves Shipping, had pioneered to deliver medical supplies to the Mars colonies more efficiently. The established shipping conglomerates still used the traditional Earth-Mars transit corridors, but Eliza had always believed in finding better ways. Defined strange, Vance. Energy signatures unlike anything in our database. And they're moving. The ship shuddered violently before Eliza could respond. Emergency klaxons wailed as the lights flickered. When they stabilized, an enormous vessel had appeared before them, its hull shimmering with an iridescent material that seemed to absorb and reflect light simultaneously. It dwarfed the Persistence by at least 50 times. "We're being hailed," Vance whispered, his face pale. The communication screen flickered to life, revealing a being with 6 eyes arranged in a circle around a central protuberance that might have been a mouth. Its skin was a mottled green, and multiple appendages moved constantly behind it. "Unauthorized vessel," the translator rendered in a monotone voice. "You have entered a designated trade route of the Galactic Trade Federation. Identify yourselves and state your purpose." And just like that, humanity made first contact, not through grand diplomatic missions or scientific expeditions, but through Eliza Reeves accidentally stumbling upon an interstellar highway with her cargo of antibiotics and synthetic organs. 3 months later, Eliza sat in an ornate chamber aboard the massive space station Concordia, the regional headquarters of the Galactic Trade Federation. Across from her sat Senior Trade Administrator Zaltz, a being from a species called the Vulturi, known for their methodical approach to commerce and rigid adherence to regulations. His 4 arms were folded in what Eliza had learned was a posture of disapproval. "Captain Reeves," Zaltz began, "the provisional license granted to your species was a courtesy, an acknowledgement of your accidental discovery of our network. It was not an invitation to disrupt established trade practices." Eliza maintained a neutral expression. "Administrator, my company has followed every regulation provided to us." "Technically, yes." Zaltz's upper arms unfolded to manipulate a holographic display. "However, your methods are concerning. Your vessels complete routes in 67% of the standard time. Your cargo capacity exceeds established norms by 22%. Your fuel consumption is suspiciously efficient." "Those aren't violations," Eliza noted. "They're improvements." "Improvements." Zaltz's voice translator couldn't quite convey his indignation, but his skin's rapid color shifts from green to purple made it clear. "The GTF has optimized trade practices over 12,000 years across 17 galactic sectors. Your species has barely mastered interplanetary travel. With respect, Administrator, perhaps fresh eyes see things differently. Our survival on Earth depended on constant adaptation and efficiency improvements. The provisional license was granted for standard operations, not for experimentation." Eliza leaned forward. "We're not experimenting. We're just doing what humans have always done, finding better ways." Word spread quickly through the trading networks. Other human shipping companies followed Reeves' lead, securing provisional licenses and introducing their own innovations. On the frozen methane mines of Ta City IV, Devin Harris of Pacific Rim Shipping introduced modular cargo containers that could be reconfigured based on contents, a concept alien traders found revolutionary. In the bustling markets of Procyon Prime, Sarah Wong's Earth Valley exports developed adaptive route planning algorithms that cut transit times by a third. Within a year, human traders had established operations in 12 star systems. Their ships were smaller but faster, their methods unorthodox, but undeniably effective. The oldest trading houses in the galaxy watched with mounting alarm as humans secured contracts with increasing frequency. What truly unsettled the GTF wasn't just human efficiency, but their disregard for centuries-old customs. When Eliza discovered that the Vulturi and the insectoid Xarl, two species with a bitter thousand-year rivalry, both needed rare earth minerals, she simply arranged simultaneous deliveries, forcing representatives from both species to occupy the same trading floor. The resulting awkward encounter eventually led to the first direct trade between the ancient enemies in 7 centuries. "You don't understand what you're doing," Zaltz warned Eliza during a particularly tense meeting 18 months after first contact. "These trade protocols exist for reasons beyond mere commerce. They maintain stability between species with fundamentally incompatible worldviews." "Maybe some instability is needed," Eliza countered. "From what I've seen, the galaxy has stagnated under these rigid systems." The situation reached a breaking point when human trading vessels claimed nearly 8% of all commerce in the sector, an unprecedented rise for a newly contacted species. Emergency sessions were called at the highest levels of the GTF, resulting in new restrictions specifically targeting human traders: limited jump point access, increased inspection frequencies, higher tariffs, and restricted cargo volumes. Eliza received the notification while overseeing the shipment of specialized Earth textiles to the aristocracy of Epsilon Eridani. The new regulations would make most human operations financially unviable within months. That evening, she called an emergency meeting of the largest human trading companies operating in space. Representatives from 57 enterprises gathered virtually, their faces grave as Eliza outlined the situation. "They want to push us out," she concluded. "They see us as disruptors to a system that's worked for them for millennia." "We can't fight an entire galactic organization," said Harris of Pacific Rim. "They control the jump points, the stations, the currency exchange. They've got us outgunned and outmaneuvered." Eliza smiled slightly. "Actually, I don't think they do. Remember what made us successful in the first place. We see patterns they don't, opportunities they miss, and I think I found the biggest one yet." The representatives leaned closer to their screens as Eliza outlined her audacious plan. By the meeting's end, the Human Trade Alliance was formed, not to fight the GTS restrictions, but to completely redefine the game. As the coalition took shape, Administrator Xaltz received an urgent communication from his superiors. Human trading vessels were disappearing from registered routes, abandoning established contracts, and seemingly withdrawing from GTF-regulated space entirely. "They're giving up," his assistant suggested with visible relief. The regulations worked. Xaltz, who had come to understand humans better than most of his kind, felt a growing sense of unease. "No," he said slowly, his skin darkening to a worried blue. "The humans aren't retreating. They're planning something." He had no idea just how right he was, or how fundamentally the galaxy's trading systems were about to change. Revolutionizing the galaxy. 3 months after the GTS restrictive regulations took effect, Administrator Xaltz found himself summoned to an emergency council meeting. The central chamber of Concordia Station was filled with representatives from 26 species, most displaying biological signs of extreme agitation. "The situation is unprecedented," began High Administrator Vorn, the ancient Palladian whose species had founded the GTF millennia ago. "Human trading activity within our network has decreased by 94% as expected. However, overall commerce in the sector has declined by 17% and continues to fall." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. A 17% decline represented an economic catastrophe on a galactic scale. "Several critical supply chains have been compromised," continued Vorn. "The medical synthesizers from Den Vivi no longer receive Terran biological samples. The shipyards at Taupersea cannot obtain Earth alloys essential for their newest designs. 17 luxury markets report complete absence of human coffee beans, causing significant social unrest among the Andorian elite." Xaltz stepped forward. High Administrator, I believe the humans have established alternative trading routes outside our network. Impossible, scoffed a representative of the mercantile clade. They lack the technology to create their own jump points or navigate uncharted space. Perhaps they aren't creating new routes, Zalt suggested. Perhaps they're using old ones, the abandoned corridors we deemed inefficient centuries ago. Across the galaxy, Eliza Reeves guided the Persistence through a narrow passage of distorted spacetime. According to GTF charts, this region between Tau Ceti and Ross 128 was deemed navigational hazard, transit forbidden, due to gravitational instabilities that made conventional travel dangerous. But humans had been navigating treacherous waters on Earth long before they reached the stars. Vance had modified their sensors based on technologies developed for unpredictable Earth weather systems, allowing them to read the gravitational eddies like ancient sailors once read ocean currents. Approaching the convergence point, Vance reported, "If your calculations are right, we should emerge just outside Ross 128 Bits' orbital zone, and conveniently outside GTF sensor coverage," Eliza added with a smile. The ship shuddered as space seemed to twist around them. When the sensors cleared, they had arrived precisely where intended. Waiting for them was a trading post unlike any in the official network, a cobbled-together structure of repurposed cargo containers and salvaged components that somehow formed a functional station. Above the main airlock hung a simple sign, "Free Trade Post Alpha." Inside, the station bustled with activity. Species from across the sector moved between makeshift storefronts and trading floors. Most surprising were the Volturi traders haggling directly with their ancient rivals, the Tarl, without the elaborate protocols that normally separated them. Captain Reeves, a Xarl trader, approached, mandibles clicking in what she had learned was their expression of pleasure. "Your shipment of Earth metals arrives just in time. We have buyers waiting." "How are relations with the Volturi contingent?" Eliza asked, nodding toward a group of 4 armed traders across the floor. "Surprisingly productive," the Carl admitted. "Without GTF oversight requiring 17 separate forms and 3 mediation officials, we find direct negotiation much more efficient." This scene repeated across dozens of hidden outposts throughout the sector, a shadow economy growing rapidly beyond GTF control. The Human Trade Alliance had mapped the forgotten routes, established the free trading posts, and most critically, invited traders of all species to participate without the bureaucracy and restrictions of the official network. Back on Concordia, the GTF Council received increasingly alarming reports. "It's worse than we thought," a mercantile clade analyst explained. "The humans haven't just established alternative routes. They've created an entirely parallel trading network. Without proper oversight, without protocols." Vorn seemed physically pained by the concept. "Such chaos cannot sustain itself." "The data suggests otherwise," the analyst continued reluctantly. "Trade volume on their network has doubled monthly. They've recruited independent traders from 37 species, including," the analyst hesitated, "including several prominent GTF member houses." Zaltz wasn't surprised. He had warned his superiors about human adaptability from the beginning. "What's most concerning is their methodology," he added. "They've located and mapped ancient transit corridors our ancestors abandoned ages ago. They're using smaller vessels capable of navigating instabilities our larger ships cannot. And they're operating without the transaction fees, tariffs, and regulatory costs that fund our operations." The implications were clear. If this trend continued, the GTF, the backbone of galactic civilization for 12,000 years, would become obsolete within a decade. The situation reached crisis point when the Andorian Consortium, one of the GTF's founding members, officially announced they would recognize trade certifications issued by the Human Alliance. 7 other major trading powers followed within days. With the GTF's authority crumbling, High Administrator Vorn made an unprecedented decision. He would personally meet with the human leadership. The meeting took place on neutral ground, a small, uninhabited moon orbiting a gas giant in the Wolf 359 system. Eliza represented the Human Trade Alliance, accompanied by representatives from the largest Earth shipping companies. Vorn brought Administrator Xaltz and a small contingent of senior officials. "You have created a dangerous situation," Vorn began without preamble, his translator rendering his whistling speech into sharp, clipped tones. "Trade must be regulated, consistent, predictable. Your free trade approach invites conflict and instability." Eliza nodded respectfully. "We understand your concerns, High Administrator, but we've demonstrated that commerce can thrive with fewer restrictions. The species that have joined our network report increased profits, faster deliveries, and, surprisingly, fewer disputes." "Because you haven't existed long enough for the major conflicts to emerge," Xaltz interjected. "Our protocols evolved over millennia of interspecies relations." "Perhaps," Eliza acknowledged, "but perhaps those protocols also calcified into bureaucracy that served the system more than the traders themselves." The negotiations continued for 3 days. As they progressed, it became clear that neither side could afford the complete collapse of the other. The GTF possessed infrastructure and diplomatic frameworks crucial for large-scale commerce, while the Human Alliance had demonstrated innovations that could not be ignored. On the final day, Eliza presented a proposal that would change galactic trade forever: a merger of systems. The GTF would adopt key human innovations in logistics, routing, and cargo handling. In exchange, the Human Alliance would bring their free trading posts under a simplified version of GTF regulation, preserving essential oversight while eliminating bureaucratic excess. "This is unprecedented," Vorn said, his skin paling to a conflicted gray. "In 12,000 years, the foundation of our trading practices has never been so fundamentally altered." "That might be exactly why this is necessary," Eliza replied gently. "Adaptation is how we survive." 6 months later, the newly formed Galactic Commerce Network held its inaugural session aboard an expanded Concordia station. Administrator Xaltz, now serving as liaison to the human contingent, watched with a mixture of apprehension and curiosity as ships of all sizes and origins docked at the station, from massive GTF carriers to nimble human vessels, and everything in between. "I still don't fully understand how your species accomplished this," he admitted to Eliza as they observed the activity from the central promenade. "You had no advantages, no advanced technology, no established networks, no powerful allies." Eliza smiled. "We had the greatest advantage of all. We were underestimated. You saw us as primitive newcomers who needed to learn your ways. We saw ourselves as innovators with fresh perspective on an old system." A massive carrier from the Xarl homeworld was now docking alongside a Vulture diplomatic vessel, something unimaginable just a year earlier. Nearby, human traders demonstrated new loading techniques to a group of fascinated Andorian merchants. "I've been studying your species' history," Xaltz said thoughtfully. "Your planet forced you to adapt constantly. Shifting climates, limited resources, competitive evolution. Most advanced civilizations in our Federation evolved in stable environments." "Stability breeds complacency," Eliza observed. "Humanity never had that luxury. We've always had to find better ways or perish." As they spoke, representatives from across the galaxy filed into the grand chamber for the network's opening ceremony. For the first time, trade protocols would be established through collaborative effort rather than top-down decree. "The galaxy will never be the same," Xaltz remarked, his tone suggesting he was still unsure whether this was for better or worse. Eliza watched as human innovations blended with alien traditions across the station, efficiency and protocol finding an unlikely balance. "No," she agreed with quiet pride. "And that's exactly what pride." "No," she agreed with quiet pride. "And that's exactly what both our civilizations needed." In the years that followed, the Galactic Commerce Network flourished. The combination of ancient alien wisdom and human innovation created a trading system more robust and adaptive than either could have achieved alone. New routes opened weekly, connecting previously isolated regions. Trade volume across the galaxy increased by 300% within 5 years. What surprised the former GTF officials most wasn't humanity's logistical innovations, but their diplomatic impact. Species that had avoided contact for millennia found themselves working together on joint ventures, their ancient grievances becoming less important than mutual prosperity. As Eliza watched the Persistence, now upgraded with a blend of human and alien technology, prepare for departure on its 1000th interstellar journey, she reflected on how far they'd come. What had begun as an accidental encounter had transformed into humanity's greatest contribution to the galaxy so far. Administrator Xaltz joined her at the viewport. "The High Council has approved your proposal for the new trading hub in the Arcturus sector," he informed her. "Construction begins next month." Eliza nodded appreciatively. "And the educational exchange program. 200 young humans will begin their studies with master traders across 17 systems. An equal number of our youth will train on Earth." Xaltz's skin shifted to a thoughtful blue. "They will be the first generation to know nothing but integrated commerce." The galactic community had never seen anything quite like humanity's rise. Where other species had taken centuries to find their place among the stars, humans had fundamentally reshaped interstellar commerce within a decade. Not through conquest or technological superiority, but through their uniquely human traits, adaptability, ingenuity, and an irrepressible drive to improve. As the Persistence disappeared into the jump point, Eliza smiled at the thought that had sustained her through the most difficult negotiations. Sometimes the universe's greatest innovations come from its most unexpected corners. Humanity had taken over the galactic trade routes, and the aliens truly never saw it coming.